National's Justice spokesperson, Paul Goldsmith, who has been sitting here listening to that interview. Paul, Tinakwe, thanks for your time. Let's talk youth crime. So the Minister says that a reduction in ram raiders, they are having intervention, investment into rehab programs, and your answer is to put ankle bracelets on kids as young as 10.
Well, look, I mean, the reality is that there's been a 500% increase in ram raids this year, and if you go to any shopping centre or talk to anybody working in retail, they're living in fear and really concerned about clearly no consequences for very serious offenders. And so, as the Minister said, and as the Prime Minister said, we need new tools to deal with what is a very small group of serious repeat offenders, and we're proposing new tools.
OK, new tools. What is new about ankle bracelets? What is new about youth military offenders camps?
Yeah, it's a combination. So we're coming up with a new category, serious youth offenders, which is basically sending a signal to the justice sector to actually take this more seriously. At the moment, you know, there's a spectrum from family groups, a pat on the head, we'll see you next weekend, through to juvenile prison. We're far too far down the pat on the head and we'll see you again next weekend end of the spectrum, and we need to push that along. And then for that small group of 15 to 17-year-olds, we want to have the option of sending them off, not to a boot camp, but to a well-thought-through, year-long military academy, followed up after they leave that by intensive, focused support.
So the criticism is that it's been tried, all the reports say it doesn't work, and yet this is the third time that National is proposing this. Introduced once, scrapped, proposed in 2017.
It's a different proposal.
What's different about it?
That it's a longer structured program followed up by intensive support once they come out the other end.
So you're going to take these 15 to 17-year-olds away from their whānau, away from their community, and then just reintroduce them later on. After a year, you're isolating them even more and putting them all together.
They need a circuit breaker to get out of. Quite often, it's the communities and the families that are a big part of the problem here. And so what we need is an opportunity. I mean, you can't just keep on as we are, where you've got a very small group going out and causing absolute mayhem. And when you look at the eyes of the owners of these little shops who have been done over time and time again, we need to have an effective response, and that's not what we're seeing.
A child and adolescent psychiatrist has told us that this is the last thing that these kids need, and it would probably make the problem worse. Have you discussed this with those kinds of people? Have you discussed it with the Defence Force? Have you discussed it with, like, adolescent psychologists?
Look, this is a highly contested space, and there'll always be a wide variety of views. What we're doing is saying...
but have you done that? Have you done...
Look, we're in constant conversation with a whole bunch of people. When it comes to, you need to have extra tools. So this is not for everybody. This is for a small group and an option that the court can use. There's juvenile prison is one option. Sending them off to a youth academy is another one. Ankle bracelets is another option. There's different options available, but we actually have to have consequences for what is a very, very serious crime that has been committed and is causing mayhem in our communities.
So how many... So the youth camp, so boot camp, military, whatever you want to call it, is going to be about 60 kids, right?
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, so $25 million for this rollout for 60 kids?
It's not just for the 25 million incorporates the broader effort that is to wrap around what could be a couple of hundred offenders. And yes, it's very expensive, but the whole point is there is a very small group who's causing a lot of mayhem, and so we do need to invest in doing everything we can to try and get some of them back on the straight and narrow.
OK, all right, so that is your point, but let's talk the politics of this. I mean, it feels like a rehash, it feels like a policy from the 50s and 60s, and it feels like you're just making a big announcement for a very small group of people to score political points.
Well, I would reject that totally. I mean, if you go and talk to people on the street, like we did a couple of days ago in Hamilton or yesterday in Palmerston North, people are really fearful of what's going on. There is a sense of a breakdown of law and order in our shopping malls and in our streets, and they want to see an effective response. And what they're saying, the message you get time and time again is there's just no consequences for these kids. And so we do need to demonstrate that we take this seriously and there are consequences.
What is the measure of success that you are looking for? You get in...
Far fewer ram raids.
The ram raids are declining now, apparently.
Oh, so they say, but they're up 500% in the last year, so I don't... there might be a slight tick in the last couple of weeks, but they'll be back again.
Youth offending rates have been declining. over the last decade?
If you take a broad, well, I mean, yes, drink driving convictions have reduced, but they're only doing half the drink driving patrols that they used to. I mean, there are broad figures around crime which don't necessarily show what's going on. What's happening in terms of serious crime is clearly getting worse, and we need to have an effective response to that.
OK, I just want to move on to hate speech laws that have just been announced by the government. They are extending it just to the religious category. Yeah. Do you support that as a party?
No, we don't.
Why not?
Well, because it is actually quite a significant a reduction of free expression and free speech. The phrase that the Minister used in consultation with us was religious belief. When you go to beliefs, it's a much broader area, and the human rights legislation that they're basing it on in terms of race includes insult and ridicule. And, you know, quite frankly, nobody wants to be insulted or ridiculed.
Correct.
But you know, that is actually an important part of expression. We do need to be able to ridicule ideas that we don't agree with, and that's what happens in a free and open society.
But the government is responding directly to the Royal Commission into the Christchurch terrorist attacks.
Yes.
OK. And are you being insensitive to those sort of Muslim community because you're not going to support this?
No. Look, we are very focused on the overall Royal Commission, and they have a lot of recommendations, and the government hasn't picked up all of them at all. We've supported them around firearms laws and a whole bunch of things, but we've always expressed our concern around the hate speech proposals because we are very concerned to maintain free expression in our society.
But hate speech has been shown to lead to hate crime in some circumstances.
Yeah, but look, you know, frankly, we don't want our overstretched police running around prosecuting people for ridiculing other people's religious ideas and religious beliefs. We actually want them focused on the ram raiders and the other things. And it's important because you do have to prioritise in government, and we think the priority needs to be on violent crime, youth crime, and getting the court sorted out.
So if you become the Justice Minister, would you take this away?
Well, look, the Minister talked about trying to get bipartisan support. Yeah. We're very uncomfortable with this, and we're not going to support it. Our view is that free speech should be where you need to focus.
Would you take that away if you became the Justice Minister?
Hopefully we're going to get the chance, and our focus, if I become Justice Minister, will be on dealing with violent crime, with youth crime, and dealing with the courts. We're not going to be focused on this.
But you're not answering just that point. I mean, are you saying that National would repeal this particular addition?
Well, then we'll be criticised for saying we're going to repeal this and repeal that. All I'm saying is our focus is on youth crime, it's on violent crime, and it's on dealing with the courts.
But just while we're talking about, you know, hate speech, I mean, the rainbow and disabled communities have been left out of this as well, and they want Law Commission work to be done in depth into that. Are you supportive of that?
Well, you know, look. They started out broad with hate speech reform, and they're going to do big stuff. They've drawn it right back to a small thing. And I think, frankly, what they've done is they've just picked something so that they can show that they've done something on hate speech.
What's your position on it?
Well, look, no. I mean, we think we should be focused, like I say, on violent crime, youth crime, and the massive delays in the court system. And there's big problems in all those areas, and that should be the focus when it comes to justice.
OK. Justice spokesperson for National, Paul Goldsmith, thank you very much for your time.